Alright guys, welcome to the True Hunting Experience podcast. Today, as usual, I'm joined by my father Jimmy, myself Colton, and then special guest star today is my Uncle Mike. We are up here in Broken Bow, Oklahoma at a very nice B&B for Oklahoma Tack. Mike, with this being your first tack, day 2, what's your initial thoughts?
It's fun, but very challenging on your body. Not so much the shooting, but it's up and down hills and wet ground and falling down, and yeah, it's crazy.
Dad, this is your second year. What do you what are you thinking so far?
For me, it's the second year that I've come, not in a row, but second time I've done it. First, when I was a little bit bigger than what I am now, I'd like to died the first day. Well, today I'm not dead, but I sure hurt a little.
This is my 4th or 5th time shooting a tack, shooting this particular one, and I am the opposite of Dad, and I am at the heaviest I've ever been, the worst shape I've ever been in, probably the least amount of practice I've ever been in coming into this. I think I've shot my bow just enough to zero it in since deer season. And that shows because I started with 10 arrows and I am fixing to go refletch 6 more new ones because I have 3 left of the originals. But we're having a great time, loving it, and everything like that. How would again, this being your first one, Mike, how would you compare this to one of our events?
Mostly, I mean, it's really not. I mean, you really can't. We don't have the distance that we're shooting out here.
Oh goodness, no! We shot that moose today at 103.
Yeah, 103 yards. So I mean, you're shooting 60 and above, and in our organization, we're shooting 60 and below. So that really, you can't really. That's apples and oranges. I mean, so.
Right.
But as far as shot quality and stuff like that, I mean, it's up there with it. I mean.
Right.
Everything's pretty well even. They like to pack them in tight like we do. They like the tight shots now. With us, a 6-inch gap at 40 yards, that's pretty tough. A 6-inch gap at 70 yards, that's ridiculous. But it's fun. I mean, we know we can make the shot, but we had one shot, very first shot on this round today. There was probably 50 arrows stuck in the tree in front of that.
Yeah.
Target.
Yeah, there was so many arrows in that tree, and it's only day 2.
Yeah, the bark was plumb gone off one side of that tree and the other side on the other tree.
Right,
so,
and then the tree from last year that there wasn't even a target next to that we walked by that just still has like 10 arrows in it.
Yeah.
On Lancaster yesterday. Because like, hey, tack's been here before. But it's a lot of fun. But like I said, I don't really feel like you can compare the two deal because it's apples and oranges. We're doing 2 separate things and having 2 separate goals as well. Our goal is realistic hunting practice and a competitive edge to it. Theirs is, let's just have fun in the woods flinging arrows.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too. I mean, you come to one of our events, you might wreck a couple arrows, but you come down here and you're not ready for this, and you're going to spend some money.
Right.
You're gonna be blowing up $15 arrows left and right.
And that's the thing for me, because we've run THE for so long, and that's all we've ever heard is that we're trashing arrows, all we're doing. Mm-hmm. And people are coming to this with 2 and 3 dozen arrows in a backpack.
Knowing full well that they're probably going to buy another dozen before they leave, too.
Right, and there's 0 complaints about it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's mind-blowing.
And if you do ever hear complaints about it, then everybody laughs them off.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the different group of people.
It's a different mindset.
Yeah, of what has been attracted to here is just amazing because in the 3D world, the actual 3D competition world, we're never going to get this kind of reaction. It's the actual reaction we've always been after.
Well, is it maybe the fact that we were breaking into the archery organization when that's all it was competitive, hardcore archery. You're going out there and these guys, you bring 6 arrows to shoot a range because most of them were all wide open. Mm-hmm. Well, we started packing stuff in there, so they started wrecking arrows. Well, those guys wasn't used to doing that. Where with the TAC, they're advertising, we're going to shoot 100 yards. I don't know how many people shot. Most people don't shoot 100 yards.
Uh-huh.
They know it's a game. They know they're going to lose arrows. They know they're going to lose before they ever do it. I mean, if somebody told you, hey, let's go shoot this shot, this course, and it's going to be 70, 80, 90, and 100 yards back in the day, would you not take an extra dozen arrows with you?
Sure. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
If you go at all.
Yeah, I mean, if you go.
Literally everything about TAC is literally everything, and I'm having a ball with it myself. I'm not putting the TAC down, but everything about it is everything that we have heard.
Oh yeah.
For 26 years that the shooter doesn't want. Well, we don't want them to be long range. We don't want them to be tight like y'all like to do them. We want them to be easy. We don't want to shoot a fun round. We want to shoot a competitive
And we sure don't want a whole lot of walking between targets.
Yes, keep the targets as close together as you can without making me walk forever.
The number one complaint I heard coming out of guys' mouths out on the range today was this one's not far enough. It's not as fun as that 100-yard shot.
Right.
The guys in front of us were saying that. The guys behind us were saying that.
Yeah.
When we was running down through there on the short, where they was only 40 to 50 yards down.
Yeah, we had how many targets in a row that we didn't even just sight?
Yeah.
It was
on. We left it on 40 and just okay, it's 44. Hold just a hair high. It's 39. Let me hold a little. Okay, back to 41. Back to 37. And that was like 6 shots in a row.
Right. And we get that from, we know setting courses that sometimes we were looking at that when we were listening to a complaint and saying,
the lake's right there.
The lake is there, yeah. I mean,
the lake is only so far from the road.
Every target, if you miss the target, you're in the water. So, I mean,
and
nothing but water behind them.
And so we know what that is to have people make those complaints that literally we could not have done anything else with the terrain given.
But what else did you want to do?
That's the deal, though. Instead of saying, oh, this is a give me target, they were just like down in the dumpster because it was a short shot.
Yeah.
And it's like,
it was
instead of going, oh, thank God I'm not going to lose an arrow for
it's still a long shot is on the top end of our competitive archery.
Right, because I was going to say is yesterday we had 2 or 3 targets on the other course that they were under 40, but today 40 was the shortest shot.
We had that one at 33.
Had one at
33.
Yeah, one at 33, and so literally that's the opposite of what we normally do, because until these past couple of years, because of the influence of TAC, for over 10 years, we have been a 40-yard maximum course because of the TK score rings, because literally when you start taking points away from people the way we do, they didn't want them to be any longer. And now we have guys jumping into that 60-yard class with no problem because of the influence that's here.
It's just got to be, it's just a straight paradigm change right now.
It is.
Right.
It is.
And so that's kind of led me, and we've talked some about it, to think of. And so, hey, hit us in the comments if this sounds like a direction you'd like to see us go. Do we push THE closer to the TAC style event without the walk and without the hike?
Yeah. Make it where we have just a handful of competitive classes, or even just one, that it's, hey, no, this, if you want to compete, it costs a little more, and no, it's winner take all, and you touch the stake. Everybody else, $15, go have fun.
Right, and go out there and shoot the long shot, shoot from the cone if you want to.
Don't care what you do. You paid me $15, go have fun. Bye-bye.
Right. Yeah. and bring that style into what we've been doing into our circuit. But then those of us that still want to compete,
we'd be able to compete. I feel like that's something that is missing in TAC, is there's those of us like today, or this whole weekend, the 3 of us, we're competing with each other.
Yeah.
We've come up with our own little game that Shelton helped come up with last time we was here.
I think maybe that's the draw to it, is that you can play any game you want to out there. There's not a set of rules.
Right.
So, because there was guys behind us, they were shooting against each other too, but they were just had
Loser
different.
had to go get arrows.
Yeah, loser had to go get arrows or whatever, you know, and the guys in front of us, you could hear they were shooting in teams. There was 4 of them, and they were shooting in teams against each other. I mean, I think Winter had to buy beer that night or whatever, but they're still competing against each other, but they're not under a set of rules that says you have to do it this way.
Right, they're competing under the good old boy, hey, whatever we
Right.
said in this group thing.
Right.
They're not competing under
Like
rules.
the backyard bowhunter group in front of us. Great group of guys. When they got to the moose, 103 yards, they said, "Nah, let's back it up further."
Yeah, 100.
Shot at like 117.
117 is what they said the range before.
Right.
And I mean, they're having a good time with that. So I feel like that's something. In my opinion, yes, we should move it that way. Again, let us know in the comments. What is your thoughts? Do y'all think that this is a great idea? Do y'all think this is the stupidest thing you've ever heard and no, we shouldn't change that? Either way, let us know. Moving off of tack a little bit, we're starting to hit there a little bit. Because Mike is here, let's talk about the history of THE and where it got started at, because of course I've heard it and I've lived it, but I was...
This guy read too many magazines. That's what happened. We bought a 3D target because we started shooting hay bales. It had rings on it. We had no idea what they were about. We didn't know anything about the IBO. We didn't know anything about ASA. We didn't know anything about ATA. We didn't know nothing about any of that stuff.
Back then it would have been
And,
the
I mean,
NADH or whatever.
Yeah.
We never even had, we were still shooting off of recurve tabs on the side of our bows for a rest. We didn't know nothing about dropaways. We didn't know anything about, because they didn't have dropaways then, but they had the TM100. Once we started into 3D archery, then bam, we started learning about all that stuff. But this guy, we show up at his house, just our natural practice we was doing before deer season, had some buddies out there with us, and I pull up, I get there first, and he comes running out the back door, and he's like, "Man, I gotta show you something." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "We're gonna do this." I was like, what are we gonna do? He said, "We're gonna start putting on 3D events. These targets, they set them up, and they draw 4,000 people to a shoot. That's what we're gonna do. Instead of giving them 30 targets, we're gonna give them 40. Got my dad on board. Next thing I know, we got 40 targets. We got a place to set it up at, and we are setting up events the morning of the shoots at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And by the time they got there, sometimes when we first started, we still setting the last 2 targets while they were. We had his wife and other people around there giving out or taking registration and stuff for us.
We set the first few targets that we ever set with flashlights. You know?
Oh, and this guy used to take a rock out there. That's where he set the target at.
A rock
and
or
just,
a brick?
Or a brick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a brick. And he would throw it over his shoulder. Wherever that brick stopped, that's where we put the target.
What classes did you have?
First 2 shoots, none.
None.
Everybody. Brick.
And the deal is that we went down and we put a target out, and I stood at the target and threw the brick over my head toward the walk path, and so we were within what I considered realistic hunting range of 30 yards from that walk
30
path.
steps.
Yeah, 30 steps. Didn't even have a rangefinder back then. And then we only cleaned from the walk path to that brick. We didn't no weed eater, no nothing.
Not even a trail to go get the arrow?
Because my vision of it was it had to be real. It had to be real life. And in real life, you didn't get to clean anything out between you and your deer stand and wherever the animal was. And when people started asking me, because here's the deal, I heard about 3D, but I refused to research 3D because I had a vision of what I thought it should be. And when people would come in and go, "Well, what classes do you have?" And I said, "We don't have classes." What do you mean classes? "Well, I shoot this kind of equipment. I can't shoot this kind of equipment." My response was, "Oh, wait, you think the deer in the wild, when you walk out there, or you're in your deer stand, goes, 'Oh, that person's a kid, let me get closer'? Or, okay, he's shooting a recurve, I gotta get closer?" I said, are you kidding me?" I literally thought it was ignorant to have all these classes that we have, but That's what it was.
We've
And
evolved.
we began to evolve from there.
Yeah, I mean,
And what was it? Because we were using the conventional IBO score rings at the time, and wasn't it that we started with the 15? And then
we started out with actually a 12, 10, 8 like they had. We said 12, 10, 8, and then the 12 evolved into the 15.
right,
Our 10 turned into the 12, and then the 8 ring was like, well, we're kind of trying to keep it even, so it's going to be 10.
yeah,
And then we said, oh, that 5 points you get outside of that? No, that's a negative experience in the woods. You either wounded that animal or you gut shot it. And if you gut shot an animal and you've ever cleaned one out, you know that's not very positive at all.
And we still stick to that one
And
very,
we
very
still
hard.
stick to it. And we said, we're going to take my 5 points away from you.
See,
And the guys that were standing around there were like, that's a badass idea.
right,
And then the other guys out there that they started bringing with them were like, that's a stupid idea. Because we had guys that were shooting really good in the IBO and ASA that were coming out there and turning in low scores. Because they were used to that 5 points, giving them 5, and they were only down 5.
Right.
They wasn't used to hitting that -5 and off 15 points. That's a 20-point swing.
right.
That you could have had 15 points, but now you dropped 5 points. So,
We'll see.
and that's hard to make up.
I didn't find out till years later, but then kind of it flattered me in the mannerism of wow, that I thought anywhere in the same mindset as Fred Bear, because still today we have ranges like the one down at College Station down there
Brazos.
that they put on once a year, Fred Bear shoot, and that was why they asked us to come down there when we did, when they found out about us, because he had a scoring format. It was back before you had the little rings. You just had what is now the ASA 10, the 8 ring, and nothing else. And so that's what he said back then. He said that it was a 10, a 5, and a -5. And that was what he had originally started with. And so I thought, wow, the fact that I come up with unknowingly anything close remotely to what Fred Bear had thought was pretty flattering to myself.
At one time, I thought when the 15 first came out, we did have a 15, 10, and a 5, and
Yes.
a -5.
Yes, and a gentleman that come and shot our stuff virtually every weekend, Stephen Bates, come to me. We were 3 to 5 shoots in, and we were doing once a month at that time. And he says, he said, I love this idea. He said, but man, when you make that 20-point swing and then you kill the animal, you're only going to get 5 points. He said, you can't make it up anyway, but you certainly ain't making anything up, just offsetting with 5 points. And he said, dude, I'm just saying, when we men judge women, it's, the top tier is 10. And, if this is hunting, then if the deer's dead in the back of the truck, that should be worth 10. And that was when we changed it to be, instead of 15, 10, 5, and -5, we changed it to the same numbers that we've added one more to now, but we changed it to -5. The 8 ring was worth 10, and then we adopted the 12 for what the ASA calls a 10, and then it was the center IBO ring for 15. And then that lasted for many years. We grew it to, 5 states, 32 events that was going on at the time. And then what happened?
The Universe said, shame on you. No, we, the belt buckle deal, that really ruined us. I mean, that put everything. And to this day, if I knew where that guy was at, I would still go get your molds from him.
Sure.
I mean, you can ask Jimmy. Whenever he told me the guy was supposed to have and they've done a good job of getting his belt buckles the last, 3 or 4 years?
2 years.
Or 2 years?
Because 2000 and 06, the people that were building our original belt buckles from us, that was down in around Texoma. That's what they actually called themselves, Texoma Leather and Brass. They called me, said they were going to be late getting the belt buckles out that year, and that they would send out a letter. And so this was kind of the whole thing that started the tumbling there was because people were upset. Now, he mailed them out directly to all the winners in 2006. And then he said, but we're closing down. You're going to find somebody else. So we scrambled and we found this guy up in Washington. And I won't get into saying what his name and stuff was, but that's the state that he was from. And he jumped up in 2007, built them with no problems. And then 2008 rolled around, and here we are. It was literally the day that I was supposed to call him and make sure that, you know, that the buckles were on the way. Well, I woke up that morning to an email that said, I haven't even started on your belt buckles. What do you want me to do? So I immediately picked up the phone. Well, first I emailed him back, said, well, obviously tell me how late we're going to be and let's go to work on it. And then I picked up the phone. He answered the phone and I said, okay, what are we going to do? Click. And I got a hold of him from other people's cell phones throughout that next, 10 months there, that I was trying to get it. And as soon as he'd find out it was me, he'd hang up the phone.
I mean, this guy didn't even, he straight ghosted Jimmy, but the dude had Jimmy's money for the belt buckles and the molds for him.
Yeah, we shipped our molds from down here to him. And so, yeah, he's still,
And he's still got to have the molds and the money. I mean,
Probably he
yeah.
spent the money, of course, and
Right.
probably just trashed the molds.
It was $5,000 thereabouts. You know, I know it was over 5,000, but just barely dollar order. And that was the agreement I made with him when I shipped him, or when actually Texoma Brass shipped him the belt buckle molds, was that each year I would pay him half of the order up front, the other half when it was finished. And so that was what hung me up so bad right there, was that we handed out IOU certificates for the World Championship, but the belt buckles, there was 396 of them. And that's because it was for 5 state championships, 5 Grand Slams, and
Triple classics at the time.
triple classics at the time, and the World Championship belt buckles. And I carried, for a long time, I carried 9 belt buckles. Some of them had been mailed back to me, returned to sender. Some of the 9 had been sent back to me. I don't want this from you. But I carried 9 belt buckles after I'd gotten everything but those 9 belt buckles to people. But we went 10 months after the World Championship with me. Back then we didn't have Archery Talk. We didn't have Facebook. We had Archery Talk. We didn't have TikTok. We didn't have Facebook. Our social media, if you will, was a talk forum called Archery Talk. And I was on there weekly saying, look, I've talked to this person.
Oh, we had MySpace back then too.
Yeah, MySpace. But
I don't think THE ever has MySpace.
it actually did, but it never.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, MySpace was, I had a cool one. It had flames and everything.
But we went 10 months that I was calling, and I'm sure I get now. I didn't understand it at the time because, of course, I was on the flip side of seeing things. But the public began to call me a liar, a cheat, and say that I wasn't trying to get the belt buckles. I was just making excuses. And so finally, after 10 months, I called Chet Phillips, and he was one of our board members. And I told him, I said, man, I'm done. And he said, good. And I thought he meant, he was done too. And he said, okay. He said, now that big old head of yours is busted, this is what I've been waiting on. He said, get off this phone right there in front of them 2 boys and your wife and ask God what he gave you this crazy idea for in 1999. And how about if he gives you a different direction, we follow somebody beside you. And I did. I got on my knees, and God picked me immediately up before I even began to get to pray. and he walked me straight across my living room. And as you know, I had drawn the TK score rings well over 10 years before, but I didn't have the ability and I didn't have the guts to try to change the archery industry that much. But now here I was, rock bottom, ready to quit, ready to be done. And as clear as we're talking here, everyone, I opened up, I had a folder, a leather folder that you unzip, and you could put stuff in it, and then in the back of it, it had a compression sleeve. And I had put on cardstock, I had drawn, it's the same picture that you see on the website today if you go there. That's the picture that I took of that cardstock and put it on the website, but it was probably a 4-inch by 4-inch square. And I had drawn the TK score rings. And it slid, as I opened it, it slid to the bottom of that compression sleeve. And as clear as we're talking right here, I heard him say, from this, we will rebuild. But if you ever take it back as your own, I will crush it. And I'll crush it to the point that you'll never shoot a bow again. I lived in fear of that statement. But I watched, and Chet Phillips watched side by side with me as I started doing no marketing. The only marketing I was doing was posting a schedule and then posting the results. That's it. Literally, stop putting out flyers, stop doing anything. And that was, by this time, Facebook I guess Facebook come along a little after that. And I was just putting out stuff there. And anyway, I started posting my schedule in Archery Talk, and every time something got posted, just got hammered by some individuals. And anyhow, we watched from 2009 to 2018 as we literally went back through the same rebuild of the organization, but I wasn't doing it. And it seemed like I got to watch this time all the blocks that I stacked up were the same blocks, but the good Lord was putting the block down and then building.
Hey, so technical difficulties with the camera there. Where were you?
We literally watched God rebuild the organization. See, I guess I forgot to say that part there. We fell over the belt buckle issue. We fell literally from 5 states that we didn't just have one shoot in those states. We were
established there.
Yeah, we were established in 5 states. We had a triple crown in each state, a state championship in each state. And that was really big. And but we had also, and so we'll explain this later as we go along in maybe future podcasts or whatever. But we had reached a point that we couldn't go any bigger because we didn't have enough staff to go to all these other places. And God orchestrated a rebuild of the same thing. And by 2018, because we had these TK score rings that we put on targets that we'd learned to rebuild targets at that time. And so therefore the rebuilding the targets was how we figured to put them on the score rings. And we introduced them halfway through the season at the state championships in 2009, and we never looked back. And God built it all the way to 2018, and suddenly we were in 5 states again with 33 events. And I did nothing. And then I started having dreams, people talking to me and everything else. I started to begin to feel that God was suddenly telling me, okay, I made you watch me. rebuild this. And I rebuilt it completely differently than you did, stronger than you did. And now it's okay for you to do marketing. And I was so afraid. So afraid. But Mike, I mean, you're the guest here, and that's why we asked this, because you were kind of, like you said, all part of the beginning there.
Yeah.
But then life kind of pulled you away. You were in and out and everything. But what I just said there, what perspective did you see that as a brother?
All right. Once again, camera difficulties, new camera, learning how it's going to work and its little quirks. Mike, back to you. Where you was at?
Okay. Before everything got tore down and everything, I was in everything because that was my brother and I helped him start it, and so I was going to stay with it and all that stuff. And then I also ended up with a wife and 3 kids, and ended up single dad of 3 kids. So that's what pulled me away from it more than anything. But I got to witness the fall, and then I wasn't really part of the rebuild. I do remember Jimmy calling me and being like, look, man, this is the direction I'm going to go. I've talked to God, and God has told me to turn it over to him, that I'm not to have anything to do with rebuilding it. I'm supposed to give it to him and let him do what he does. And I thought the same thing Chet did. Good, it's about time, because at that time Jimmy had gotten to the point, and it was, I think, because of the success that he wasn't really ready for at the time, was that he had gotten arrogant. He had gotten, hey, look at me, look what I did. And I think the good Lord looked at it and was just like, no, son, that's not what I put this out there for. And then when it started rebuilding and all that stuff, I was still raising my kids and doing all that stuff, and I got in a place where I didn't need to be around a lot of people either. So I stayed away from it, and I watched every tournament he went to. He come back with a smile on his face. Where before, if there wasn't enough shooters there, he was just beside himself mad because what did he do to mess it up? Or why wasn't the people there? Why didn't they come? And it had got to where I think his reputation had gotten out there that people had thought that he was arrogant. I mean, because he wouldn't.
He wouldn't call me arrogant, called me a tyrant.
Yeah, I mean, but it was at the point too that if somebody, before you ever come up with your protest rule or any of that stuff, and wanted people to protest targets, back in the day, if somebody come to you and said, hey, this target is really tight, or it's really, you just tell them to shut up and shoot it.
Yeah.
And
So they wasn't entirely wrong.
no, and that was the deal. I mean, and that was the thing. The good Lord turned the mirror around in his face and let him see what had happened.
Because who was it that lied to all the shoots and said we had 300 shooters at shoots?
Brad Carlson told me he was vice president at one point and everything, one of our best friends, and I told him, this was years later, as Mikey put it, as I was trying to look through the mirror and understand everything that I was seeing, because that was part of, aside from just the belt buckles, that's what a lot of people understand. There was a lot of things that were happening there, like you're talking about my arrogance and then things that people were hearing. Well, I learned that the rumor mill is extremely dangerous.
Oh, and word of mouth is way faster than anything else. I mean,
And so I made a comment to Brad Carlson, because he had separated from me as well, not because of THE, but again, life. You know, he had gone through a divorce and everything. Well, he'd come back and was working with me. And I made the comment one day, I said, I wish that I could, and I know I never will, that I could go meet the man that lied to everyone and started telling them there in 06 to 08 that if they hosted one of my events that they were guaranteed to have 300 shooters. And Carlson says, you can't see him because he's standing in front of you. And I thought he meant him, and he said, no, the man in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what do you mean? I didn't tell him that. He said, you did, without telling him that.
Mm-hmm.
You told him by what you left out.
Mm-hmm.
He said, but Jimmy, you signed a piece of paper that collapsed this organization. I said, what do you mean? He said, 2003, we had 299 rounds shot. Wasn't people, because we looked that back up and it was like 187 people. But you were allowing 2 rounds to be shot. And he said, so you had 299 rounds shot. And Heather was ecstatic and was excited and everything else. And you reached and got a scorecard and signed your name on it. And he said, you flipped it in the air. He said, and it helicoptered and landed on the stack. And you said, now there was 300. And he said, you signed a deal with the devil to collapse it that day.
Well, and that's the other thing. People don't hear exactly what's said either, because every time I've ever heard you say anything about how many, when they ask how many shooters are at the World Championship, you've always said, we had this many rounds shot.
Right.
Which, in a way, is kind of leading people down a blind path, because you have 150 people, they shoot you rounds apiece, that's 300 rounds.
Right.
But there's still only 150 people there.
Right.
So when you tell them rounds, in their head they ask the question, how many people do you usually have at an event? They just heard the 300.
Right. And he said then is what I went ahead, and he said, and then you let the lie get bigger. And so I said, how? And he was explaining to me, and he said, because that very shoot, he said, that I remember on Archery Talk, there were 2 people that got on there that were at the event and swore that they counted, which if any of you have ever been to a concert or anything else, you cannot count 600 people unless you're running them through a gate.
I promise you, if you're at a concert that's got 10,000 people there, you'll swear there's 100,000. You know what I mean? Because it's a lot of people in one place.
And one of the things we had done that very weekend is I had read a book that I can't remember the name of it, but the whole thing was about creating illusions in business. And so what I had told my staff, and there's a picture that I can give you all, it's on my phone, that it popped up the other day of most of the staff members that we had at that time that was that year. And I told them all to herd everybody. We had, if you picture this, there was a gazebo that's about a 15-foot circle at this place that we were hosting the World Championship. And then 15 yards from it was a hedge of trees and a gap with an offset in it, which was where people came in and out at, and then another hedgerow of trees. Well, that was where the mouth of the gazebo actually was at. The year before, we handed the awards out over the side wall of the gazebo so that everybody could stand in a big area.
Yep.
But I told all of you guys as staffers to cram everybody into the mouth of that, because I had read a deal using the concert thing as example, said that when somebody's telling you their point of view from a concert, all they can tell you is what they saw from their ears forward. And they will swear whatever they saw from there forward is what happened all behind them too. And so we had at the awards simply maybe somewhere between 50 and 75 people that were crammed into this little area. But to get their awards, they're having to go through 15, 20 people to get to their award.
No, it's shoulder to shoulder.
Shoulder to shoulder. And so these 2 people put on the internet that they counted, and there was over 600 people there. And again, like you're saying about saying rounds, now I am in still yet you're correct, people will still mishear it. I'm very clear to say, now not people, but rounds, because of this whole thing. But the other thing that I did is I did not get on there and correct them.
Right.
Instead, I got on there and said something like that. Because see, another thing that I'd learned from another book was, especially if you're a younger guy, like I started this at 22 years old. And people thought I was older because I purposely grew a goatee, because I read that men with facial hair are statistically more
I
successful.
remember just talking about it when
Yeah.
we was out there at the race, set it up.
Right.
You'd make hairpin turns through the courses.
Yeah, to make it all look bigger.
And every turn had banners. Bowtech, Carter, and Trueball
In order.
in order, that order, because of alphabetical thing makes
Makes it stick
makes
in
it
people's
stick in your
brain.
head. And you'd even go and ask them, well, did you see all sponsoring? Yeah, you had a bunch of them. Yeah, how many did we have? I don't know, but you had Bowtech, Carter, and Trueball.
Right.
It looked like we had 87 of them.
Because the public didn't. Well, the other thing that I did on top of it, talking about the banners, is that yes, those are the ones they remembered. But we took and got free banners
Sierra
from
Mist
Pepsi-Cola, and I turned them around backwards to use as signs. Novelty games, practice range. Well, people would go down to get the arrows and they'd walk back. Oh, they're seeing all these Pepsi
Sierra
and
Mist.
Sierra Mist and whatever. And I did it intentionally for them to think that that was a sponsored banner, but thought I was being honest by if they asked, oh no, I got those free, those were just signs.
Yeah.
But I made people know who my actual sponsors were, which was Bowtech, Carter, and Trueball, by putting them in order, and I did all that on purpose too. And now we don't go out there and try to create those illusions.
No.
We don't go out there and try to purposely make people think we're bigger than what we are.
Well, that was the deal. We learned back then, just from being around the organizations and stuff. The more people they thought were at an event, was a bigger chance that they were going to come to that event, because they wanted to know what those people were interested in.
Right.
You know, and what was making it where that many people were showing up. And I promise you, like he said, he told them 300 rounds to throw that scorecard on there, but the only thing that there was 300 over there at that time, I promise you, was T-post, because I drove every one of them. But
That is true. That is true. Because we had T-post out over that hill for parking and streamers. And
streamers, one for every bow rack, one for every water jug station. There was T-post everywhere. And then, I mean, we worked at it. It was to create that illusion. We worked at it.
Right.
And I think a lot of that was being at a place where we had to set completely up every year that was renting, and we had to make it look as nice as we could possibly make it. So we took that persona even further than what it needed to be. We could have done that with half of what we done it with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Easy, you know, and still look like we were bigger than we were.
Right. But I got caught up in the illusion.
And you created an illusion that you lost yourself in.
Right. And I feel like that's what all the way, and we don't know what the issue is now. And hey,
It ain't been the same since COVID.
No, since COVID. I mean, unlike the fall, what we refer to it as, unlike the fall of 08, we don't know why, because we were back in the 5 states, back in 33 events.
Averaging events between 75 and 100 cheers.
Yeah, and COVID hit, and we have our core ranges, but we're not huge and big like that anymore.
The year before COVID hit, when Colton broke down up there in Missouri, I was living in Missouri.
Yeah.
And COVID was what sent me back to Ada, Oklahoma from Missouri, from Joplin, Missouri. But they were splitting. Colton was taking a group of targets and going one way, and Jimmy was taking a group of targets and going another way.
Like
so
I said,
they were split up running that, and they were running and gunning and doing all they could do to keep up with it. And you know, I wasn't where I could help it. Was where I could help at the time, because I was living in Joplin, Missouri. Now, when this one broke down, had he thought Uncle Mike's just an hour away, I could have at least kept him company until they come got him off in that gas station, you know. But at that point, it seemed like everything was going really good, and it was going to be a jet plane again with a piece of paracord hanging onto it, and then all of a sudden, COVID hits, and that changed the world anyway, but it still changed the archery organization. Like, it turned it on its ear, and not just our organization, but the whole archery organization.
Right. Well, and I think coming back around, and we'll kind of end with this this concept here. See if you agree with me here on stuff of. I think still yet God's working on something right now with THE that we don't understand, that He hasn't given us the vision of yet, because ever since COVID, you can look at a few things. It's not something we did wrong.
No.
But TAC was what came into Oklahoma, right in around that area, or at least became popular. Then SHOT was born, and that pulled shooters from us. And it's not that I have anything against those organizations whatsoever, but they pulled some shooters. And I think that this is where we currently are, is that we've got to begin to start praying for God to give us His vision, because I think there's a part of it that I have crept back into what I think it should be.
And that's the thing too, what we need to look at is with TAC and the SHOT events out there, is those people aren't even interested in a regular 3D tournament, most of them.
No.
And like we was talking about the other night, these shirts at a TAC event, you're an outsider. You're definitely, people are looking at you like, why are you here?
I mean,
why are you wearing,
because
and with us, we're wearing our shirts up here because we're trying to promote the three companies we've got they're advertisements more so than a shooter shirt. We're at an event wearing an advertisement is what we're doing. This is our THE shirt. We've got our Jack 'em Up bait out there. We'll be wearing that shirt tomorrow, but we've got his archery shop that Jimmy just opened. We've got that shirt, and that's the only reason why we're wearing them. But I promise you, today we were the only ones in shirts.
yeah,
Yesterday I seen one guy in a Hoyt shirt,
right.
Yeah,
and he was a
that's
younger
the first
kid.
one I've
And
ever
he was
seen.
probably 16.
Yeah.
And I think that was just, hey, I got this shirt, I'm gonna wear it.
Well, and we were talking about the concept of is that I could have pointed out to you yesterday 2 or 3, but today I could have pointed out like 8 or 9 guys that wear a shooter shirt
Oh yeah.
to everything they go to except TAC.
And I think these people that are in TAC, like I was talking about last night, are people that they don't want that to compete. I think the shooter shirt and all the guys competing so hard is kind of what kept them from coming into the archery world as far as shooting 3D targets and stuff. They were just like, well, why would I go out? Are we good now?
Okay. Third and final time that we've had camera malfunctions. I said final time because if it happens again, that's the end of the episode, folks. Where were we?
We were talking about the 3D shooters, the competitive side of it being intimidating to a lot of the people that are shooting in the SHOT and the TAC events, because these people out here at these TAC events and stuff, they're wanting to bring their families out. I don't know how many kids I've seen out there today on the range.
Holy crap, yeah.
And I think a lot of that is because it's not competitive. They can take them and let them shoot from wherever they want to shoot, which in our organization, we have never, it's always been a rule. If you don't think your kid can shoot from that stake, move them up. Most of the time they're shooting a fun round either. Now, if you're going to sign them up to compete, then they got to shoot from their respective stake because they said they're good enough to compete. If they're shooting a fun round, we don't care where you shoot from.
We've always had some equivalent to the Mighty Mike class.
Yes. And I think there's so many people getting in and TAC and stuff like that because it is a carefree organization that you get into. You can shoot. If you follow the circuit, there's thousands of people there. I mean, it's not like we're even lying about that. There's thousands of people at these events. I mean, we had to park probably 3 miles from the registration today. You know, of course, parking down the side of the road. So
Getting there 10 o'clock.
getting there at 10 o'clock. You know, yesterday we got there at 6:20, and we were still a half mile.
Yeah.
I mean, we still wasn't right up there in the front. So, and that was in the morning time. So, but I just feel like maybe that's the direction we maybe need to go, or do we need to take and put a competitive spin on it and still let everybody shoot for fun, but for the people, like you say, that want to compete, do we do a money class? Do we do a winner take all money class? You know, what do we do on it? Do you want a special buckle for it? What do you want for it? That's what we want to know, is what direction we need to go with that. Because we've been kicking it around of making longer shots and doing things like that, but you just won't have that big walk that us older guys, it's hard on us. I mean, running around out here in these mountains is a young kid's game. And
Skinny kids game.
a skinny kid's game. This young kid's like, it's not a fat man's game. But, you know, I fell out there today, he fell out there today, but we enjoyed it. And can we go to the ranges we've already got? Can we set up 3 or 4, maybe 5 shots that are stretched out there like that, and it helped, you know, or
Right, because I think, you know, we've got them already stretching it where, you know, we say there's 60-yard max. Well, it's not every shot's that far out there.
Right.
And whatever. And we've already got our ranges that are setting 3 or 4 of those,
Right.
you know, that can be maxed on their courses that are normally
'Cause,
only
I mean-
built for 50-yard max. And,
Well,
you
if
know,
you got
so
a
can
60
we get them to, I think most all of our host ranges can accommodate 1 or 2.
if you've got
that
a
are gonna
60-yard
beyond
max,
that 60.
and you've got lanes that you can shoot 60 yards on, it's not hard to back up 15 yards.
Right.
And then drill a lane in deeper 15 yards, or even drill a 60-yard lane in 30 more yards to get your 90.
Right.
It's very easy to do, and it don't take that much time, it just takes the want to.
Right. And they only have to do it, like I said, if they gave us.
Maximum maybe 5 shots.
Yeah, on a 15 target course, give us 5 lanes that we can get that long with.
Right.
And then I think there's a potential that we can go that direction. But we need to know from you if that's the direction that you'd like to see us go. So.
All right, that's it. We're gonna say our goodbyes now. Apparently, it's just time to say bye bye. Once again, do the TikTok and the YouTube things of hitting like, subscribe, leave a comment if you can. Dad,
Man, come see us at the THE shoots, come to the archery shop, and if you haven't tried Jack 'em Up bait, come do it, because it'll cause you to be able to
Shoot 'em down.
kill deer, have fun.
Lots of deer.
Good night.